Let's look at some more things we can do with files. First, the OpenFileDialog, which we're calling OpenFile. Over here, you notice that we are supposed to take the file name out that shows up by default. I mentioned that in a previous video, but an edit took that away. So if we put a new one in here, you notice the file name by default is OpenFileDialog. That's what's going to show up when the user presses the button to make the OpenFileDialog show up, and it's kind of strange looking for a file name. So it's probably a good idea to take that out. Also, I'm going to take out what I just created there. All right, when we have an OpenFileDialog, here it comes, and you see there's a space for the file name, and we see all the file types inside this list. There's no filtering going on right now, just the file name, and that's it. But we can put filters in, and you've probably seen this in programs that you have run. I'll slide this over so there's some more space for us to see this filter category over here. Although the letter size, the font size is not very big on the screen. I'm going to show it to you bigger later on in a Word document. I'll type in all files and then parentheses and asterisk, that's the wildcard character, dot asterisk and end parentheses. And then there's a vertical line. You can get that just above the enter key is a vertical line when you press shift. And then asterisk star asterisk, and the asterisks are wildcards. So now when we open the OpenFileDialog, there's a filter over there on the right that says all files, showing wildcard.wildcard with the asterisk, and you can see all the files listed. We can add to this filter list. So I'm going to go in front of where it says all files. It's also separated by a vertical line. You might have trouble seeing it. Then I'm going to put text files, and then in parentheses the wildcard, the asterisk .txt, and the parentheses, then the vertical line for a separator, and then a wildcard.txt. And then again, there's another vertical line separator between that and all files. Again, it's not very big to see right now, but I'm going to show it to you larger in a moment. We'll bring up the OpenFileDialog, and now you just see the text files because that's the first thing in the filter is the text files with wildcard.txt. We can also switch it to all files. And again, you've had this happen to you in other programs. Now you can see that we can use it when we write a Visual C# program. So here in bigger type is what is going on. So hopefully you can read this a little more clearly than what was inside the properties box. And some other options you might have. Maybe you need to save a Word document or image files. And you can have more than 2 categories here. I've listed 2 for each of these, but you can have several different ways that you can filter. We can do some of this same action with save file dialogs as well. So I'm going to make a button here for us to use the save file dialog. I'll call it btn save file. You can call it whatever you want. This time I did remember to change the tooltip property. It's going to be about choosing where to save a file. And I'll change the text to let us know that we're going to be saving a file, or acting like we're saving a file. You'll see. All right, got that set up. Now we actually need to get a save file dialog. There it is. And I'll change its name to save file. You could leave it as save file dialog. You can put SFD for a prefix if you want. And inside the button that's going to make this happen, here comes the StreamWriter output file. We've seen this before. Then if SaveFile.showDialog, which forces the dialog box to show up on the screen, If the DialogResult.OK happens, that means they click Save. Then we're going to have output file equal file.createText, which will make a new file or overwrite a file that's already there. Save file, that's the file dialog, .file name. That's where we get the file name from, is the file dialog. And then I'll throw some more code in here even though we're not really going to use it. So output file.writeLine testing, and then of course remember to close the file. All right, let's see what happens. Save file dialog comes up. You notice save as type, there's nothing in there right now. You might have a guess what's going to happen. All the file types are showing up where we could potentially save, and if we pick a file that's already there, the save file dialog will ask, do you want to replace this file? It will check for you. It'll give you one shot. That's a handy feature. Well, we can put some filters in for the save file dialog as well. Just copy and paste them from OpenFile so you can see an example of this. So now when we bring up the save file dialog, you see save as type, and now it's just the text files showing up. There's text files, all files. So we can use those filters there, just as we did in the open file dialog. And I'm not messing with it right now. There is a default extension, that default.ext, if you want to mess with that. So we've seen that the save file dialog will automatically check to see if the file already exists. But if you're just saving in the middle of your code, not with a save file dialog, maybe you want to be able to check to see if a file exists. If you want to save a file, it might be bad if it exists. If you want to open a file, it would be good if it exists. So I'll change this button to say btn file. Well, the name of it is btn File.Exists. I know I forget to mess with the tooltip. And I'll have the text say something about the fact that we're going to check to see if a file exists. As I said, when you're opening a file, that's good. If you're saving a file, it might be bad, because you might not want to overwrite to the file. Okay, we'll set up a try catch as you're getting used to doing. There's the try, here comes the catch with exception. I'll call it EX, and then I'll set up a message box to do EX.message. So whatever the problem is, it will generate a message that will hopefully be useful to the user. We'll go inside the try and create a stream writer. I'll call it output file. And then if file.exists, and then in parentheses, put the string name of the file. That will return either true or false. True if the file does exist. So if it does exist, we will let the users know that it exists. Just give them a little message box right now. Otherwise, we should tell them that the file doesn't exist. I think I screw this up. I copy and paste and forget to edit it. And I'll be a little more specific here and say colors.txt. But I should say colors.txt does not exist down in the else. I didn't notice that till I was busy editing. If it doesn't exist, then you are safe to save the file. That would be true, but it would be because it doesn't exist. So sorry about that mistake on line 261. And colors.txt does already exist. It is a file inside the debug folder, inside the bin folder. So we could ask the users, do you want to replace the file? So I'll add that to the message box. We'll check to see if the file exists. It does. Do you want to replace the file? That seems more like a yes or no question, not an okay question. We probably need to use a message box that has two different buttons, and we'll need to know which button got clicked. So, got to put a prompt at the top, or a caption at the top, and then our third argument can be the message box buttons. And this time we'll do message box buttons dot yes, no. There's a lot of choices there. We'll use yes, no. And then pick an icon. I'll go with a warning. Let's see how this looks. File exists. Do you want to replace a file? Yes or no? Great. But we need to have a way to keep track of the answer the users give to us. And that response is a dialog result. So, before the message box shows up, we could actually do it all on one line. I'll have dialog result response. And then I'll set response equal to the result of the message box. So response equals message box dot show and all that stuff. And then whatever button they click, that's going to be the dialog result. So if response is equivalent to DialogResult.no, it could also be .yes. But if it's .no, then we know they don't want to replace the file. So we'll just give them a message here to tell them, wow, that was close. Otherwise, if they click yes, then we know that they want to overwrite the file, so we'll let them know that we warned them. Just trying to show you how this can work. And then you would go on if they want to overwrite to the file and make output file equal file.createText and put the string that is the file location, and that is colors.txt. So all the rest of your code would go inside the else. Let's see if it works out. Do you want to replace the file? No? All right, that was close. But if you say yes, okay, we warned you. So, got some strategies there on more things you can do with the file dialogs, checking to see if a file exists, and now you know how you can keep track of the different buttons that are clicked on message boxes.